is that anyone can edit the information. So you have to watch out to make sure you're getting like an accurate source. You can always check the footnotes to see where they're getting their information from as well. So you have to be wary of that and how to read a document properly so you can get good information.
Excellent, Evan. Yeah, I suspect others of you are mindful of the fact that, this is sword. The good thing about Wikipedia is that anyone can contribute to it, but that can also be the bad thing about Wikipedia, right? So the reliability of the information is one of the biggest issues. And for that, you can't, this is not something that you put in your bibliography, but that's not to say that it's not a good, starting point, or that you can't build a bibliography from some of the information that's found on a page. Let's see, Daniela writes, even when non-controversial and established information, can't imagine about Black history. Daniela, do you want to add a little bit to that? It's very intriguing what you're touching on here. Can't imagine about Black history. It's a good source.
Well, I'm not much of a contributor to Wikipedia, but I know people who tried to contribute to Wikipedia about absolutely non-controversial objects, facts, or even computations, such as astronomical computations, and had repeated edits that ended with them being booted out of Wikipedia, besides, administrators coming in and kicking them out actually for writing an accurate computation, which is absolutely non-controversial, is established since 200 years, and I would not have believed. I also can attest that this person, one in particular, took it too much to heart and felt really, really bad. It must be an experience which is not pleasant. I cannot even begin to imagine what it might be like about Black history.
Very good point. Yeah, it kind of leads me to the point that I wanted to make. Wikipedia is particularly interesting in relation to underrepresented histories. And again, that's where it can be, there's a double-edged sword here: controversial information and information that needs to be sourced, information that is underrepresented. These are all some of the complexities having to do with Wikipedia. And for that reason, we want to think about it in relation to something like Black History Month and Black history generally. One thing I wanted to point out to some of you, there's a way in which Wikipedia is not dissimilar from something many of you know about, really considered the original encyclopedia. Amelie can help me with the pronunciation of the encyclopédie, that was really meant to be a means of democratizing, no less ambitious than changing the way people think and collect to the Ambitionpedia. So when we're thinking about take the time to contribute to Wikipedia, all of the complexities come to the that I'll say, and I think my co-hosts are going to add to the answer to this question. One of the reasons to contribute to Wikipedia is because it's not designed to be the final word on any subject. And for that reason, it can challenge, it can contest histories. History is complicated, right? History is often written by people who have a kind of authority and are in a position to document history. Wikipedia is something that we can change, we can contribute to. And so, of course, that comes with certain caveats, but it's part of its power. And one of its powerful, things that it contributes is that it fills in many of the gaps of what does or does not get documented. So if we think about people who are underrepresented or misrepresented, it can be a very powerful tool. It's political, as was the encyclopédie. The other reason, the least important to contribute to Wikipedia, is to get some extra credit. Now, I happen to know that many faculty are giving extra credit for attending this workshop. I do want to say a couple things about that, just based on my conversations with some faculty. You should take some notes during this workshop. Some faculty give extra credit just for attending the workshop. All you have to do is prove that you attended and participated. Some faculty may have a little questionnaire. So you want to take note on some of what you learned so that you can report back. There's also a little poll that I want to bring your attention to. We're going to put it in the chat towards the end. We would like you to fill that poll out, and it can lead to some potential extra credit itself. Follow-up assignments that you might do to get extra credit. One thing I would like you all to talk with your instructors about, because I know that with my students, I'm doing this. I'm allowing my students to get extra credit to, just participate in the workshop, but I'm also allowing them to do a follow-up assignment, which will require them to actually edit or contribute to some Wikipedia pages. And that is something that they can do for an additional optional credit assignment. Talk to your instructors about this. There may be something that's very subject specific to your own classes that you could do as a kind of follow-up extra credit assignment. Okay, I want to touch on a few things, and my colleagues are going to get a little bit more in detail about some of this, but I just want you to list a few things that you can contribute to a Wikipedia page, from little things that are nonetheless valuable to really big things that are going to be part of a more ambitious project. The biggest thing that we can think of that one can contribute to a Wikipedia page is content, information, data, things that are not already covered, right? Now, that's where you want to get into the research. You want to make sure that your sources for the information are verifiable. That can be a much more ambitious research project, but that's something that should be done. Another thing that can be, but I'll say a few things about this, it can be a little time consuming. And one of the bigger things that you contribute is images. Images are sorely needed on many a Wikipedia page. Now, the reason why images, you might be thinking, well, it's easy enough to grab an image and upload that to a Wikipedia page, but they don't make it that simple for you. So there are a few things that you're required to do if you're going to contribute images. But let me just clarify. So going back to the subject of content, content can be in the form of a major research assignment. And let me just do a couple of little details from this Foster Photoplay Company Wikipedia page. Foster Photoplay is one of the first Black-owned film studios. It's monumentally important historically. It has a decent Wikipedia page, but it could stand some more work. But I'm just highlighting, if you go to that page and look at the filmography, there's some things that are easily verifiable. I looked and found that they were. The dates of some of these films that this Black-owned film production company produced, they're not in here with certainty. That's something that you all can look up. I know that there are verifiable sources available for these films, and you can edit. Doesn't require an extraordinary amount of research, but it's something simple and valuable that you can contribute. Even little things, go down here to where it says Birth of a Race, and there's a link to go to more information about this film. Here's the thing, the film is actually called The Birth of a Race. Minor mistake, but still, when you see things like that, you can correct them. Go in and correct the fact that it doesn't have the article the in front of it. So when we think about contributing content, it doesn't always have to be a massive research assignment. There are other little ways that you can contribute. Now, I want to go back to images real quick. Here's what I was alluding to when I said they don't make it simple for you to contribute images, but images are important. In order to contribute images to a Wikipedia page, you have to have already done 10 edits. So you can't just dive right in and do it, but it's worth doing. Get those 10 edits in so that you can start contributing images. The other thing about images is that they either have to be images that you own, maybe a photograph that you took or a work of art that you created, or they must be freely licensed. So there are copyright issues that we have to be concerned about. Now, handily enough, Wikipedia actually provides resources for what we call public domain images. That are acceptable for posting on Wikipedia pages. So, you know, that's something that you could contribute that's relatively simple. Now, I want to dwell on images because not only because I teach visual culture, but this is one of the questions I want to ask, not rhetorically, but I want you all to answer this one. Why do you think it's so valuable, so important to contribute images to Wikipedia pages? And again, this is something you can put in the chat, or you all can unmute yourself. Why is that a valuable contribution in addition to information, data? Devin says gives a visual to the reading. We all know how important that can be. You know, that can change your relationship to the subject matter. Anybody else? Contextualizes information, gives it more depth. Excellent, Evan. An image is worth 1,000 words. Very good. They don't say that for nothing, Daniela. Let me ask you this. This is another. Do you all know who question? I suspect some of you do. Very good. Most photographed American in the 19th and by accident, by design. He understood the importance of representation. He insisted on his own representation. And he did so because he understood the political, not just, you know, the figurative representation, but the literal visual representation. Representation matters. Many of you know this. And since we are talking about Black History Month, we understand how important representation is, particularly for people who are historically underrepresented or misrepresented through visual culture. Adding images, even though it's a little bit of a pain, you got to do those 10 edits before they allow you to do it. It is a relatively easy thing to do, and it is incredibly valuable, especially if we're talking about Black history and subject matters of relevance. Okay, so images is a big one. Don't give up on that just because it's a little, you know, you have to do some things in order to be able to contribute. Here's a few others I want you to jot down. Footnote data. Sometimes there is good content in a Wikipedia page, but there's not the footnoted source, the reliable source to make that information more trustworthy. So in a weird way, with some Wikipedia pages, you can work backward. You can read the information and then go back and find the sources that demonstrate this is reliable or that it's not trustworthy, and you can make that edit. But footnote data is one relatively simple thing that you can contribute. A link to another Wikipedia page. So if you're visiting a Wikipedia page about a particular subject and they mention another person that's connected to the subject matter, and you can look and see that there's already a Wikipedia page for that person, you can contribute the link to a page that already exists. That's a relatively simple thing to do, but it's very valuable. And then last but not least, sentence revision, sometimes in the form of just correcting misspellings, typos, or poorly conceived sentences. Let me show you a quick example of what I'm talking about. These are relatively easy edits you can do, don't require a ton of research, but they really increase the value of web pages. Paul R. Williams, one of my favorite architects, Black architect of the early 20th century, he has a fairly decent web page, And here's something that I added. If you go down to the references, there was already a reference to this book about Paul Williams, but I happen to know that there was a PDF version of the book. So I went in and I turned that into a link. And if you click on that now, it takes you to the book that you can read for free through this manner. So just adding that little link to something is going to help people. Here's another example. Here's a web page about a great film. If you've never seen it, you should see it. Claudine, 1974 film. Go down to, there's a section on marriage and family life because that's much of the subject matter of this film. Marriage is misspelled. It's probably just a typo. I deliberately left it in there so one of you can go in and edit it. So that's a simple one. Sometimes you come across things that are very simple to improve. Last but not least, sentence revision. Sometimes things are awkwardly worded. Sometimes things are worded in ways that we could even say are culturally biased. So again, let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. There's a web page there's a Wikipedia page for the Fillmore District. This neighborhood in San Francisco has a really fascinating and rich African-American history. Go down to this section where the heading is African-American community. There's a sentence here I'm going to read for you. And as I'm reading it, I want you to think about it and think about how you might revise the sentence to improve it. Let me show you a close-up here. So here's the sentence. There's a section that says the large influx of African Americans during and after World War II created a large amount of racial tensions. And as you can see, my questions for you, not just how can we improve this sentence, but what's problematic about this sentence? Read it over to yourself. Think about ways that this could be reworded and put it in the chat or unmute yourself. The large influx of African Americans during and after World War II created a large amount of racial tensions. Good, Daniela. Definitely would put a different spin on things. The way the sentence is worded, very good, Evan. Putting the blame on African Americans rather than the other parties involved. Very good. It's worded in a way that's highly suggestive. Seems biased against African Americans as if they directly caused the racial tensions. Very good. These kinds of sentences, as you can imagine, are all over Wikipedia pages. So by reading Wikipedia pages, looking for these kinds of opportunities for revision, it's a relatively simple thing that you can contribute that greatly improves the page. Okay, so small but valuable edits. The content that's not already there, images that you can contribute, footnote data, links from one page to another page, and sentence revisions. These are some of the things that are not that time consuming, but make huge, extraordinary improvements on the pages that already exist. Okay, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Amelie Brown. Amelie, you can bring up your own screen, and she is going to talk some, partly from the library perspective of how to evaluate information. What are some of the things that constitute a strong or non-substantive Wikipedia page? And you will want to unmute yourself first, Amelie. Amelie, I think you're still muted.
So let's see here, but that's still your screen. So I'm gonna share my screen to the library. Can you see that?
I can't see it yet. Or did you go to new share?
Share. Here we go. So can you all see my screen?
I cannot see it yet.
I can see it.
But it says that I'm screen sharing. Can you see it? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. So, given all of that, I want to say that I think Wikipedia is an amazing collaboration across the world where everybody can contribute, right? We all have knowledge of some type, right? We don't need a degree. We know about our own life experiences. So everybody can contribute. And it's a wonderful depository of human knowledge. It's open access. Everybody can look at it. No restrictions, no paywalls. And it has the content in many languages. And I want to say, maybe it's not a source that you want to cite for your research projects, but it's a great place to start because it gives you links to all kinds of different sources of information, different formats, right? So for example, let's see here. If I were to look for Berlin, right, of course, the English Wikipedia comes up. And there's this elaborate article with history, geography, demographics, government politics, infrastructure. It has pictures, which, like we talked about before, really enhance the content, give people more of a connection. And then, but then if I go to, let's see here. If I were to go to Wikipedia DE.
Amelie, we're not seeing your screen. So if you want me to bring up a different slide that kind of corresponds with what you're talking about, should I bring up one of the pages that you want to talk about?
So why? I'm not sure why you can't see my screen.
I don't know. Why don't you try again? There it is. Very good.
Yeah, you got it now?
Yeah.
So let's see, how do I close this one up again? But no, so then if I go to, let's see, close this one. Right, we saw that page about Berlin on the English Wikipedia, but then if I go to Wikipedia DE and look for Berlin, there's a whole different page, right? That was created by people in Germany. It's not a translation. Does that make sense? So just to say that I think it's a really wonderful tool to share information for lots of people. So, but then we were going to talk about Wikipedia pages, right? So I think this one is one that I really think is a good one, because let me just walk you through it. Right, you have the index over here. It's well organized. It has the pictures illuminating information in each of the sections. It has the links to broader context. And then it even has a timeline. Which again, puts her life and her contributions in a broader context. Does that make sense? And then if you go further, there are notes, which makes sense because instead of putting that information into the original text, to not distract the reader, it's helpful to put them in the notes, and then here are all the references. Yeah. So, any questions? No? Okay, so then maybe let me show you this one. This is one that's a little more less well defined, let's say, because, right, so there's early life and education and career, and then impact on race relations and Tuskegee syphilis study. And Wikipedia is marking it as needing more revisions. And then it's talking about maybe the tone is not right because it's kind of really controversial. And like, yeah, Ruth mentioned that the more controversial the topic is, the more careful we want to be to trust the information. But let's think. So if we wanted to do something about this particular article, where will we start? Right, I'm thinking, I want to think about, so what aspect do I want to add to? Maybe early life and education. Yeah. So then I might go to the DVC library and put in her name. Obviously, I did this before, so it already knows it. And then search. So this interface looks through lots of resources that we have available at the DVC library, books, articles from the databases, content available online, right? Like this one is in the stacks, but this one is also available online. And so why am I going there? Because the content has already been reviewed, right? So hopefully I can rely on it. And then, so here, for example, if I wanted to open this one, the history project, then here's the link to the ebook. It's, oh, I have to sign in again. Let's see here. Right, this is only available to, let's see, go back. Right, the library pays for this, so you have to sign in with your, like you sign into Insight or Canvas. But then here is the full text of the book. And then you can go to the table of contents and look for the person you're interested in. Let's see here. So here I already uploaded it. So there's the text. of the history book. So they give a summary, and then you can mark different sections or different keywords, and it will remember it for you, right? And then also you see here how it has the option to create a citation. So I want to say that's really helpful. And you can choose whichever format you want. So let's see here. So what I did was to look at some of the content about when she first started school. Let's if we go back to that page and then view history. You can see that I made some changes in that particular section just to share more information, what they said, right, that they wanted me to add to, or that wanted people to add to. Share some more information about her early life. Yep. So I added a quote, which I think adds life to whatever we share, right? Gives, yeah, brings the person to life. And then, of course, we want to add a citation for it too, especially when you share a quote, you want to share the page numbers that it came from. Yeah, does that make sense? But then, of course, let's see. The first inclination for everybody is to just go out on the open web, right? Ernest Rivers. Wikipedia always comes up first. But then here's the common reader from worcester.edu. So what do you think about that? Let me share the link in the chat. So you can have a look for yourself and see if that will be a reliable source. What do you think? Anybody? Any suggestions?
I am still reading it right now.
So what criteria would you use to decide if this was a reliable source?
Well, one of the criteria I use is see where they get their information from to make
Yep.
sure that it comes from a reliable source. So I was just scrolling through, see if there's like any source documents or some footnotes. Maybe there's not footnotes, but maybe they source their documents in the quotations as well. They do have like a small reference page, so that makes me a little skeptical of the information that I'm getting.
Yeah, so
So
this person
yeah,
is
I'm
only referring to one other book, right?
yeah, so I'm a little skeptical of the information. But
Then
yeah,
if you
I would
look,
expect, like,
can you see right about the author?
Assistant press. Histories, race, science, education. He is currently working on a book project. How racial politics shaped American healthcare, which is the case of.
Again, that's only within the same website, right? So then we might want to go out and look at, so what is this? Worcester.edu? Does anybody?
Yeah, kind of weird website.
Does anybody want to look that up? Worcester.edu. What is it?
It's Washington State University in St. Louis.
Okay, so what do you think?
Kind of a strange source, but yeah.
No, so I think this is a little bit different in the sense that it's an opinion piece, if you want. Right? It's a professor that says why he thinks that she is an important figure for students to know. Right, so I might want to be a little bit careful about the statements that he makes. But again, he has the background. It's an established institution. So we might want to, like, maybe not quote everything that he says, but there are pieces in here that we can then research further. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, so I think that's so I showed you. So. Okay, so any questions? So I think Anne will talk more about how to actually edit pages. Right? Remember, the library thrives on questions. So here's your link.
Hi, everyone. Sorry
Anytime.
to work out the sound
Yep.
thing. Can everyone hear me okay? Are people able to hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I just couldn't hear you at the beginning there.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. Thank you. The delay. We're over here in the ACL. So really quickly, what I would love to do first is just, I put this in the chat earlier. I'm going to put it in one more time. But I encourage you to create a Wikipedia account. You're also welcome to be super anonymous on Wikipedia. There's lots of reasons you're like 1 inch away from a big controversy on Wikipedia. So you can always be anonymous if that's something that you would prefer. And sometimes when we're doing today's, I'm going to show you ones that you can make really easily. They'll get accepted and adopted. But obviously, as we discussed, there's sometimes when you hit controversies that are a little bit more difficult. Anonymous, especially if it's done by cell phone or mobile phone, are often like flagged kind of immediately. They don't necessarily get automatically deleted, but that is one of the tools that Wikipedia uses to make sure that it doesn't get like spam, right? Because this is the world's largest encyclopedia. It's one of the biggest open source, it's one of the biggest search engines. And so in that way, it does use like bots to kind of make sure like that someone's not going in there and, graffitiing the page or spamming the page with their own bots. So if you are working on a cell phone, they might do things like, oh, this person's on a IP address that looks like a cell phone, and I want to go see what the edits are. So when I've worked with students, that is something I've come across. We have a dashboard that's part of this Edit-A-Thon. Wikipedia has done a lot to try to bring more public into the editing process, because right now the people who are editing Wikipedia tend to be white males, and there is diversifying efforts at hand with Wikipedia and Wiki-edu. But it definitely means that you've got to get on and you've got to be active, and and so we want to kind of open the doors to what it looks like to be active with some simple edits. So that dashboard, I'm going to show it to you really quickly from my end, is an exciting feature of Wikipedia. And this is like a public dashboard, but if you're an instructor or you're a student, you can always tell your instructor that there's a Wiki-edu program where an instructor can have their whole dashboard up, and it will help students participate and takes down some of the barriers of editing on Wikipedia without any support. So these dashboards get created for, I can create it, and it'll track how many edits we did and how many of those articles were viewed. And so it puts into perspective, when we did this in 2021, we had 22 editors. This was, again, a moment where we had a lot of activity. We had 22 editors. We added 1,000 and so words, and those articles well, the last update was 2 years ago, but up to 2 years ago had 800,000 article views. So, when I think of when I submitted my dissertation for my doctoral, maybe 30 people read that dissertation. And so I just want to put into perspective, people are reading these pages. This is where people go to get information. And yes, to everyone's point, you always have to look at information, whether it's published on Wikipedia or anywhere else, with the skills that you have for understanding bias, understanding research context, understanding what's good sources and not. And those things are always in motion. Sources that we might have loved back in the day maybe need updates now to be more relevant and more clear, or to have language that's not as biased as it was. So again, these things are always in motion. But that said, you have a readership here in Wikipedia, and the work that you do to add or contribute can have an enormous impact. And I think that's the thing we just want to make sure that students, especially at DVC, are understanding, is that you can go on to an open source site, you can make edits, and you can participate in the production of these histories. And you can produce some of the histories that you want to see, or fix some of the histories that you want fixed. And that's what we're trying to do here, is just empower you with the tools to do that. So one of the things that I want to start with, and I think we're monitoring the chat, but I'll kind of try to keep it open as well, just in case. I want to start with some low-hanging fruit, which is this Black science fiction. By low-hanging fruit, I mean there's a lot to be fixed in this that's pretty simple right away, and can at least break that barrier between reading Wikipedia and editing it. Plus, it's a super enormous topic. There's a lot going on in Black science fiction. It's very relative to what we're doing now with histories of literature, histories. It's in the public media. If you watched HBO's Lovecraft Country or things like that, that's mentioned on this page. So it's a really viable and vibrant page, and it seems really timely to look at a page like this. You can also see that at the top, there's issues that Wikipedia has flagged. Sometimes if there's issues, they'll automatically remove content. And you are always welcome to go on the top page and debate the removal of items, because sometimes it can become editor versus editor, which has happened in the past to myself as well. But in general, on a page like this where it's been flagged, it tends to mean they need some citations and they're hoping editors coming to this page will make them. So I want to show you some of those areas where citations are needed. So if we scroll down and let me put this article in the chat if people haven't already put it in there. This will get you to the Black Science Fiction page, and if you want to like pull it up, then you can kind of see along with me. I'm going to go to the section titled, it's under History, which is the major heading. And that you can tell it's a major heading because it's kind of bigger font and then it has that underline. So this is a major heading, and I'll show you how to actually make those in a second. But that history is then organized by centuries and by timeline, by chronology. So it goes 19th century, and we're going to fast forward to the 1950s to the present. We get to an area where we see, just on skimming, I can see here that there's no citation in this paragraph. An author is mentioned, Samuel Delany. He's noted as a major science fiction writer who works with race, memory, sexuality, perception, gender. He's named, he's contemporary writer working now. But there's no citation to any of this information. So immediately I know, oh, okay, let me help. Who's ever included Samuel Delany, great, excellent. Now let's go help this piece stay by adding a citation that's relevant to that content. I'm not sure if I'm going to find the exact citation that this writer used, but I can find one that emphasizes what this writer was, what this editor was saying about Delany and his work on memory, sexuality, perception, and gender. So one of the ways I'll start doing that is just by doing like a simple Google search to see what comes out first, and then we'll get deeper and deeper into how to go further with that. So with Samuel Delany, I'm going to take this, I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to put in Samuel Delany. I practiced this, so all my search history is going to come up. And I'm going to put in science fiction, just in case there are other Samuel Delanys. I can kind of see by like a quick skim, like, am I on the right page? Does this look like who the writer was talking, who the editor was talking about on Wikipedia? It looks like it. Here it is up here, is its own Wikipedia page. I can see that there's a New Yorker article, probably an individual website that he runs or his agent runs. And then I come across the Paris Review. Now, the New Yorker is a perfectly fine, acceptable citation for Wikipedia. There used to be this sense like, oh, you can only do scholarly articles in Wikipedia for it to get up there. But then that knocked out a lot of histories. Like if a scholar wasn't studying those histories, if the university didn't pick up that particular history, you might not have scholarly articles on it. So in this case, let's say, the New Yorker has picked it up, and so has the Paris Review. These are both like kind of major big publications around literature and culture. One thing I'm going to tell you about the New Yorker is that once you've exhausted your free, your free things, it won't let you read anymore. So, sometimes it'll block you, and which means it's going to block other readers. Like, see, it says here, I've run out, which I have. I'm not, and I'm not going to pay for the New Yorker. So I'm like, well, that article is not really going to let me search it, even though I can probably, which we can look in a second, go to the DVC online library and see, do I have the New Yorker available? Is that article there? But there's part of me too that really wants to be super open source about this. Like, I want people who enter onto Black Science Fiction page, no matter where they are, no matter if they're attached to a college or not, I want them to be able to open a source that I found. If I want to be super open source, pro open source. So if I go over to this Paris Review, I open it up, and it's not hitting me with a paywall. Now, to purchase the Paris Review and to get deeper into the Paris Review, you will eventually hit a paywall. But for right now, it's open and it's not counting the amount of times I hit this URL. So right now, what I can do is I know that I have an interview around Samuel Delaney, and it's a full published interview from the Paris Review, which is pretty, at least this top part is pretty well established. And I know from just kind of searching that I can probably get at least to this idea, if I put in gender in the search bar, that he articulates, or that the writer working on Delaney articulates the exploration of issues of sexuality, ethnicity, and gender, okay? So if I want to add this as a source onto Wikipedia, I can come back here to the Samuel Delaney, and now I'm going to go into edit mode. Really quickly, I am already, hold on, I have to move everyone's faces. I'm already signed in. When I signed up for Wikipedia, by the way, I was like, oh, I'll just put my full name. You don't have to do that. And also, I haven't hit any troubles with that, but just to let you know, you don't have to put your full name. You can change your editing name to something more anonymous if you would like it. I didn't, I just put Ann Kingsley, and now I want all my edit and editorial history, so I don't want to change it. So here, I'm logged in and I can go to edit. Okay. And when I hit edit, and you can hit edit at the very top up here, you can edit the source, and you can also view the history, and the history has the full history of everyone who's edited. So even if you add something and it's deleted, there's a record of it here. That's one of the big things with Wikipedia. Even if things get deleted, because I can equally go in and delete as I can edit and add. The whole history of that is here, including discussions on why something may have been deleted. So I'm going to go back to that 1950s, and I'm going to go press edit. And you can see that not a whole lot has changed. Back in the day, it used to only be source editing. Right now I'm in visual editing. Used to only look like source editing. So you had to kind of have like this Wikipedia cheat sheet, like code almost, like it was code, it was Wikipedia code. And you would have to add in content with this coding language. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. Wikipedia realized, okay, that's not really part of our, you know, if part of our mission is to get more people to edit, let's make it a little easier to edit. And so you can keep yourself in visual editing. If it ever ends up going into source editing, you want to make sure you're in visual editing. And in visual editing, it's like any kind of document. It's like, you know, working with Microsoft Word or working with a Google Doc. You can go to the Samuel Delaney as noted. And if I want to add a citation in, let's say I want to add that interview, then I can come in and put it in after the after that sentence. Now, sometimes I'll be like, wait, where do I add the citation? You know, does it come before the period? Does it come after the period? And where do I put it? In general, in a Wikipedia article, like, because this first sentence says he's a noted science fiction writer and he's writing about these particular topics, I probably want to put it in right away just so it gets an anchor in on a source that kind of helps establish that. It doesn't mean it confirms it. It just means it establishes an anchor to another source, to a secondary source. In this case, I can come here after the period and go to cite. And I'm following that because I can see here, this citation follows the period here. Up here on number 7, it follows after double consciousness. The citation is after the period. So I put my cursor after the period, I go to cite, and I can put in news or website, they're all kind of general categories, and then you can tweak them once you're inside. So I'm going to just put it as news, and we'll see if that gives us enough. And I'm going to go to the Paris Review, because at least this top part, the overview written by this writer, is here. And then I can come on to, I can put the writer's name in, I can put the source date. I can put the source title. And then I can put the pages. There's no real pages on this since it's just part of their public facing work. So I can leave that out, Paris Review, and then I can put in the URL. And then I can put the URL access date, the date I accessed it. So February 27, 2023. And that's because, again, some things can change. And so if I have, this is the date that I accessed it, and this is where the information was, that's why we put that access date. And then, like we all wish would happen in all of our papers we write, you can just insert it and it creates the citation in the Wikipedia format for you. So you don't have to like know where everything goes in order to create the citation. You have to fill in the tool appropriately with the right information as best as possible. And I can see like something happened here. So I want to come back. It says check date values, probably because I put summer. So I'm going to go back and edit that. And I think what I'll do is just put 2011. So it doesn't flag it for that error. And then that got rid of that. Okay. And then you can see up here that it becomes number 17. That just means it was the 17th source on here. And if I click on it, it'll bring me, oops. Oh, I'm in edit mode, that's right. I was like, why isn't it bringing me down to the bottom? So at that point, I want to publish my change. And then I'll show you how it looks when I'm done. So this is a small change. So I'm going to press publish. And I'm going to say added a citation, right? And then I can always review my page. I can watch the page. I'm just going to publish the changes. And now it says, you know, my edit went through for now. And then I can see up here that we can click on this. And this is the part I want to show you. It shows up on the bottom. Okay, so it'll immediately skip down if a reader clicks on it and it becomes part of these references. Now, really, one of the most exciting things about Wikipedia is being able to contribute to the source history or the sources of a page. So even though that seems like a really small edit, we're actually piecing together a web of knowledge around Samuel Delany and around Black science fiction that's adding to the whole picture of this article or of this history. And so each of these sources constitute some addition to scholarship or some addition to the research that is known about Black science fiction. And so in adding to and contributing citations, you're adding to that composite list, which if you're a researcher or you want to really learn about a topic, having a list like this is essential. And then when you're really into research, being able to scrutinize a list like this and being able to say, oh, this source is really good, or this source is really important, or this source maybe shouldn't even be on this page, is something that, is kind of the next level in all of this. But to start, adding a citation is really important. Okay. That's one way to add a citation. There's another one here. If I go into the article, and I go to the section called Afrofuturism, you can see here that there's a wide swath paragraph, and it looks like somebody probably had written some research. It looks like it's probably an MLA, given where the parentheses are and how the citations are done. Maybe someone was writing like their thesis or writing a research paper and said, hey, I'm going to pop my research into Afrofuturism as I'm writing this work, which is not unheard of. Like when you're doing this work, sometimes you're like, hey, I should contribute to something. But what we can see here is it's not in the Wikipedia format, and it's not getting cited in that list below. So this person, Kodwo Ishan's journal article, isn't actually getting referenced down below where we would want to, where we would want to spotlight this scholar's work on Afrofuturism. So I can take this person's name and the article, and I can do another kind of quick fix. I can put that into Google and then see, can I find this? The other place I can always look is under Google Scholar and the DVC library databases that Amelie was showing you before. Well, I'm a big fan of making things super simple. So I see that when I put it under Google Scholar, it comes up. I can see, okay, this is Ishan, this is the journal that it's published in, and this is the article that area is referencing. And so what I want to do is attach this citation to that entry on the Wikipedia page. So if I come here, I go back to editing. I'm going to come here because this person's already given me the page number, and we can also verify that. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And I'm going to put a period there. I'm going to go up to cite, and I'm going to do journal. And I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to go, and I'm just going to do this quickly. So I'm going to go and use the Google Scholar citation machine and go to cite. And I'm going to get this information so I can copy and paste it in live editing time. It is first name or their first name. Then I'm going to take the next part, future considerations about futurism. Put in the title. And it says it'll display in quotes. So that's why I took those quotes out of there, so it doesn't double it up and create errors. I'm going to take the title of the journal, put that in there. I'm going to take the journal date. And then volume issue. And then I'm going to grab the page numbers. Okay, and then I'm going to insert, oops, there's one thing I want to add here. I want to add the URL because, again, as somebody who really likes to find sources, I want to just do it while I'm in here. I can see in Google Scholar, and then again, like you can always see where else this might exist. I can see there's the potential it has a full source link. And I want to make this available to others in case they want to look at it and have it and review it. Because I like being in the community of researchers. And I'm going to go find, I want to put in a URL. Oh, there it is. Okay, so at the very bottom of the site journal, I can put in the article. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the PDF to it and insert. Okay, now I have to look and see what's going on. Probably, let's see, the journal. It didn't like how I wrote the journal. Oh no, you know what? It didn't like my PDF. I'll tell you how to get around that. Sometimes I'll come up here and copy the link address. Sometimes it's a Mac issue. Oh. Okay, that one worked. Sometimes it won't like your link or won't like my link. So here I have this now is cited, and I can take this off, but I actually want to go back and edit and put the actual, I'm going to put the actual page number. So that writer had said it was 294. If I was like, had tons of time, I always feel like I'm on like a baking network where I'm like showing you how to make like a trifle in 10 minutes. If I had like time, I would actually just go verify really quickly that 294 was the right one, so that if I'm in here editing this, that I could make sure that it is 294. But now what I have is a citation for that quote. I can publish the changes. And now it'll show up in that source list. So now Ishan Koduo's paper comes up in this arena of citations, and people who want it can also access that PDF there, right? So if you're on here, you're doing research, you're trying to understand what's happening in Black science fiction and the history of it, you can come in here and see, you know, papers related to Afrofuturism. Okay, there are other fixes that you can make on this page. So for example, there's oftentimes you'll see these red links. The red means there's no associated Wikipedia pages. So if I click into this, it'll say like, do you want to start an article? And it'll show you how to start the article. But before you do that, it's worth always looking to see, does it really not exist, or is the name, sometimes names are spelled in two different ways because phonetically they might have a different English spelling depending on which translation you're doing, or like if it was, you know, names, you know, pre, you know, 16th century, that names may not have even have been standardized in terms of their spelling, which you'll hit with some people and further past. So I'm going to put this name up, and I can see, oh wait, I think there is a Wikipedia page, but the Wikipedia page is using the DU spelling as opposed to whoever was writing on this was using, oops, and I just left my page, was using a different spelling of that name, whether it was right or just phonetically different. My sense is because, and I would want to make sure, do I have the right person? But it looks like it, 1932, Cameroonian writer, writings. So you can see here, Medu's native Cameroon. So what I want to do is actually just do the service of connecting it to that Wikipedia page. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to find my edit. And I'm going to go to this red spot and I'm going to go to the link tool. And the link tool allows you to either link an external site, or what Wikipedia really loves is when you start cross-hatching and building bridges to other Wikipedia sites, because then it brings attention, like, I want to know who was writing in 1932 in Cameroon and in terms of Black science fiction. That sounds like an amazing research project. So I come onto here and I can put in the name that comes up here. And then I can change the text. And then let's see, did it come up? And now I can publish the changes. Linked the Wikipedia page. Okay, and now when I press it, I can even leave the spelling, because again, I may want to just respect that spelling may be different depending on who's reading it. I haven't done enough research to feel comfortable with changing the spelling of the name, and I wouldn't want to in this case. So I'm going to just go ahead and press that, but now at least it's linked. And what you can see is, oh, there's a lot of work that could be done on Medu's page. Especially during this time period, there's probably a lot of rich things to talk about in terms of who was writing in the 1930s. Remember, we're getting right into the Harlem Renaissance. So these writers may be interconnected in many ways. The Harlem Renaissance was as much global as it was about Harlem. So when I'm on there, I can fix that small edit, but it actually is really big because now I'm adding to who Medu was. I'm adding to the Black science fiction page, and I'm adding the potential that someone might go on there and start adding more to that work. Now, these things happened before Wikipedia, but there was just a lot more barriers in terms of like, how did you connect to this information? How did you share this information? How did you get it into people's hands at the scale that the internet can get it to? So those are all possible. If you really wanted to kind of level up and you did want to start a page, you can definitely start pages. I've had many students start pages. And so there's a page in here I wanted to come back to. That's called Light Ahead for the Negro. And this was a novel published in 1904 by Edward A. Johnson, an African-American writer who was publishing a lot of texts, and then this one, a like utopian novel about like time travel into a post-racist future. So very interesting at 1904, coming out of and into this new century. And so when I click on that, I can see, okay, there's no linked page. And then when I look for the book, because I want to do the same thing I did with Medu, when I look for the book, I can see it doesn't come up, but I can see I can actually like have access to the book by this Gutenberg, which is like a big archive of books that are now openly available because of the time period. So a book published in 1904, unless it's still actively maintained by the estate, will go into the public domain. And hence why it's on the Gutenberg. I can see it's on a site like Black Pass, which kind of gives, it's kind of like its own historical encyclopedia. So it might be interesting, you could argue to start a page on Light Ahead for the Negro. And if you did that, some of the things you would want to start with are just an overview. And so if I was to start an article, which I've started several, I would start with something comparable as like a template. So Amelie showed you like Harriet Jacobs, and that will tell you like every possible like detail you could include from timelines. Like some students want to start with like structure as opposed to a lot of like paragraphs. Great. Some people want to add lists. So the Harriet Jacobs page will tell you like the full breadth of what you could do on a Wikipedia page. But for this case, I kind of want to look at how people have described novels on Wikipedia and what they use to start those. So I'm going to choose someone who's writing after Edward Johnson, but does fall at times is categorized under science fiction. Is Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. in many ways, when you start reading what Edward Johnson was writing about, you start to feel like, oh, there was probably like Ralph Ellison is probably picking up a tradition of these writers writing about these other, like, you know, other kinds of realities and other kinds of futures. So here in The Invisible Man, I can see like, how is it started? Okay, title, Invisible Man is Ralph Ellison's first novel, published by Random House in 1952. So I can come into and figure out a little bit about this novel, and I can look at these various sites like Light Ahead here, where you get the actual book. I can also go to and Google, I can find the actual book itself. And I can see and try to create kind of a summary, but also like who published it and when. So this is the original publication. And I can see, okay, it was published by Grafton Press. And it was published in 1904 by Edward Johnson. So I can at the very least start adding that as content on that page if I wanted to create a page for that book. Okay, so that's just a kind of overview of how to get into the edit side of it. I would love if we have our dashboard open for another week. So if people are interested in contributing edits and you want to be registered on our dashboard, that would be awesome. I'll put that information up at the top again. And that dashboard will be open, as I said, for about a week's time, and it will help record, you know, what you've edited, what you've added. When you add just a simple edit like a citation, it does add to that 10 edits that Ruth was talking about earlier, where then you can have other things kind of open up, like the ability to add images and to do more things. They just want to make sure images are particularly like copyright controversy, because once they're on Wikipedia, it means you can do anything with them. You can put them on a t-shirt, you can put them on a coffee mug. So people who own those photos are very obviously protective of them. So Wikipedia does want you to be able to edit and understand copyright limitations before you jump into images. Okay, any questions or thoughts?
Everybody, I know we put a lot of things in the chat, and you may or may not know this. If you click on those 3 dots, you can actually, you know, download some of the information that gets put in a chat. There also will be a follow-up survey in addition to the one that was put in the chat. So that's a good opportunity for you to reach out for more information. We want you to use this as a point of departure, not a conclusion. We want you to use the knowledge that you've gained about how to open up an account, how to get on the dashboard and actually get in there and start editing a page. And I would really like it if you all would follow up with some of your instructors with subject matter that's related to your classes and ask if you can do an extra credit assignment that involves doing some research and contributing to a Wikipedia page. So this may be something that you did as an extra credit option, but turn it into another project so that you are contributing to Wikipedia pages and also finding ways to relate it to your various class subjects. Does anybody have any questions?